So
Mhm.
you're from your mindset, you're saying, well, this is possibly going to be a sprint, right? A couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, possibly a misunderstanding, and we settle that quickly.
Mhm.
And this sprint turns out to be a marathon.
Today's guest is Anja Sigmund, a litigation stress coach, certified kinesiologist, RTT practitioner, and cognitive behavioral hypnotherapist. During her career in international medical training, Anja became the defendant in a high-stakes commercial lawsuit. The experience gave her an inside view of how deeply legal disputes can affect a person's nervous system, emotions, and ability to function. Drawing from both lived experience and professional training, she developed the litigation resilience method, a structured 5-phase process to help individuals stay grounded, emotionally steady, and mentally clear throughout the legal process. Anja works with international clients and is currently writing her first book, How to Overcome Litigation Stress and Thrive. Hi, Anja. Thank you so much for being here on The Savvy Shift. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Samantha. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. I'm curious how that works.
Yeah. So usually what I like to get from people is I like to just kind of start with your origin story and the story of you and telling how you came to be doing the work that you're doing in the world. And then we'll kind of just see where the river takes us from there.
All right. So, if I take you back to my origin story, so may I take you back to the year 2013? And at the time, it's a cold November morning, and I'm sitting in my lawyer's office in central London. And I'm exhausted and drained from a 2 years litigation. It's a commercial claim where I'm a defendant with a former business partner. And I sit at the conference table. There are piles of papers, and I turn to my lawyer and I say, I can't do that any longer. It feels like a race without a finishing line. And I'm really looking forward to this the final big court hearing in 6 months. And it has been kind of David Goliath setting in terms of manpower and financial resources. And my lawyer turns to me and he says, this is not about credibility, because this is what I have been asking for, right? I said, I want justice. I had this kind of Robin Hood scenario of justice. And he says, this is not about justice. He said, this is all about credibility. And the other side is doing everything to destroy your credibility. And this was a moment when I realized I got something terribly wrong here. And I instantly had this kind of scenario, this Grisham novels, right, where lawyers are taking you down the rabbit hole into a trap, and not because of the technicalities of the case, but as a human being. And I realized I'm not ready for that. I realized this is not only about legal facts and matters, this is a psychological warfare. And then I had to ask myself, what are they looking for, the other side? And then I said, well, this would be my blind spot, right? This is what I don't see. These are my weaknesses. And then I said, okay, before they find my blind spot, I'm going to find it first. And this one sentence, it's not about justice, it's about credibility, turned everything around. And I had 6 months left to go for the final court hearing, and I needed a tool. I needed a tool to actually survive it and to prepare for this impact of credibility being tested and somebody wanting to break through that barrier in this defense And that was the point when I said, well, this is now that the real journey begins. And then I went out, I had to find something that helps me through. And I discovered kinesiology. Never heard about it before. This is a feedback system which finds stressors, emotional, mental, physical stresses in the body and dissolves it. And I found this tool and it was incredibly efficient and effective. And it helped me actually through the coming time. And this is when I was so fascinated by the method that I became a kinesiologist myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to help people who go through the same situation as me at that time to come out stronger and to get through it with less harm, actually. There is this story about, you possibly heard about it. I guess it was in an American series where there's a hole in the ground and a person sitting in that hole and asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a priest coming along and the person shouts and says, "Can you help me, please?" And the priest says, "Well, I pray for you in church on Sunday." And there's a businessman coming along and the person shouts from this hole and says, "Can you please help me?" And the businessman throws $100, says, "Well, buy yourself a ladder." And another person comes along and still the person in the hole shouts, "Can you help me?" And the person jumps in. And then the person who was stuck in there says, "Well, are you crazy? We are now both stuck in this terrible place." And the one who jumped in says, "I've been here before. I know the way out." And this is basically what I do. With the experience I have and the tools I have, helping people go through this terrible stress of litigation.
Mm-hmm. So you talked about litigation in terms of psychological warfare, and I kind of wanted to dive into that a little bit. Like, and we can talk about it for you personally, but also with the clients that you see. Like, what kind of psychological warfare are we talking about? Because that, to me, psychological warfare and psychological abuse are kind of some of the most insidious types of warfare that can occur. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about that.
This is when the other side is painting a picture of you, which totally clashes with your identity and with your values. And when you don't have this inner strength, it can actually destroy you. I have a client who heard the accusations he was saying in the statement the other side made. There were 52 times a word that was so devastating. And the repetition of painting that picture actually can get you into a very deep identity crisis. You start doubting yourself. Am I the person they are picturing here?
So then how do you help clients like who are experiencing that kind of thing? And like, what does it do to your psyche when people start going down that route?
When going to this, it depends on if there is a real moment of crisis. The most important thing is to actually calm down the nervous system. Because if you can't calm down the nervous system, you can't think straight anymore. You are distracted, you can't focus, your memory is impaired. Using techniques to calm down the nervous system is important, and actually connect them with their values again, and ground them, going, who am I in this whole thing? Because you are easily getting lost and distracted. And you actually, at some point, you don't know, it can come to the point where a friend of mine, actually, she said when she went through divorce, one point she said, "Am I drinking too much?" Because this was suddenly an issue at court, saying the person, she drinks too much and so on. And suddenly you are doubting yourself. And this constant, repetitive negative picture is really harmful. You really have to be strong to counter them.
Mm-hmm. So, what are the tools that you give your clients to kind of counter that kind of thing? Because once those seeds are planted, and I've had this experience before, like once those seeds are planted and you kind of start spiraling down and you really start questioning yourself and who you are and what your values are and things like that. And it's not a fun place to be. So, how do you work with clients to get through that?
Well, one thing, for example, is like these are thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts are spiraling. So there's actually, you have to stop these thoughts, because the more often you think a thought, you're building like a trace or a story about yourself. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
interrupt that thought. And from the position where you are, what you like to achieve, the question is,
Mm-hmm.
am I thinking the right thoughts to
Mm-hmm.
achieve that goal?
Mhm.
So it's as if you were reprogramming
Mhm.
your brain.
Mhm.
You can either go in a positive direction, so you're telling yourself a different story and repeat. This works, for example, with affirmations, right? So you're just counteracting this negative picture. Affirmations, breathing exercises, grounding exercises, mindfulness. So there is a kind of toolkit, and you find out which one works best for you, and you apply it on a daily basis. It's actually like a training program and a structure and a kind of discipline which you need to have this stamina and strength to go through it.
Mhm. Okay. Um, because you said one of the things that I've heard often said is that a belief is just a thought that is repeated over and over and over again until all of a sudden it becomes programmed into you. So I really like what you said about your thoughts equal your story or your thoughts equal your beliefs.
That's the point. And Samantha, the thing is that litigation is so stressful that you are easily triggered. And triggers, suddenly things come up from the past, right? Who am I? I am whatever, a failure. I can't do this. Everybody else is stronger than me. I can't handle this. I was never good in organizing. That can all come back because the stress just like it's kept, it's it's just like closed and hidden, all this kind of beliefs in your daily life. But when a stressor comes in, it all erupts. And you have to control your emotions. In the legal case, you can't be reactive. You can't let anger, frustration, shame, anything be in the middle of that case, because it can just affect your decision making. It can affect the way you're communicating with the other side or with the lawyer. So make sure that you handle your emotions and your thoughts, because a thought triggers a feeling, right? Or has a feeling as a reaction. So there's a thought, there is the feeling, there is the behavior, and then there is the action. So you have to be careful of what you think.
Yeah. Okay. So, um, you were talking about how you kind of discovered kinesiology as a way and energy work. And so, because those two things kind of seem like kinesiology is very like a westernized look at it, and energy work is more of like an Eastern style philosophy. And so I'm wondering if you can tell me, like, are there those two things in your mind different or the same, and how do they work and interact together? And specifically, how did you use kinesiology to help you with your case? And then how do you help your clients?
Mhm. So kinesiology is a kind of stress management which works with the Chinese energy system with meridians. Um, and it works with certain modes, let's say, to address the current emotional situation of the person. And it's a biofeedback system which works with muscle testing, so that it's the body or the system as such gives feedback of Is it an emotional? Am I emotionally stressed, or mentally, or physically? And there are ways to dissolve this kind of stressors, just like holding specific acupuncture points on the body to get the whole system back into balance.
Okay. So are there certain kinds of emotions that are, because I often hear that like emotions can get trapped in the body, right? And so then if you're not releasing it, are there certain places on the body where certain emotions are typically held and that you can kind of gauge what's going on with the person based on where the tension is?
When you ask a person where the tension is, mainly in litigations, so it's in the they say it's in the head, or it's in the throat, like you can't express yourself, or it's in the stomach. And here we have a special procedure in how to take this emotion out of the body and to balance the body, the system again.
Okay. So, do you work with anything like in terms of like a bioresonance or things like that, or is it purely just on like the meridians and the acupuncture points and things like that?
It's basically on the meridian and the acupuncture points. It's
Yeah.
not
Okay.
bioresonance system.
Ah, I see. I see. Okay. So I wanted to go back to this idea about like litigation in general, like not being about justice, it's about credibility, because like that's a huge flaw in the system, right? And so I wanted to kind of go down that road and talk about like why or how do you think that the system became set up that way?
How it became set up that way, it's I can't tell you. I mean, it's a very, very old system that's been
Yeah.
established over
Yeah.
hundreds of years. The question is that what our idea about how the system works, which clashes totally with reality. And for me, it's important to be ready and prepared that whatever we think is unreal, and that the system as such, your story and what you think is justice doesn't matter at all. And when I speak to people, they are saying we are totally disappointed by the justice system. This is not what we thought it, and we don't trust the system anymore. This is what people are saying. The credibility part is actually a story about credibility. I had in 1993, we were working with a broker in the UK because we're doing metal trading on the London Metal Exchange contracts. The contract was closed. We said no, we had an agreement to keep the contract open. And we sued the broker. We went at court in London, and we asked for a witness, an expert on this specific contract. And we got a reference for somebody living in the UK. We talked to that person. Yeah, he would be our witness, expert witness. And in the court hearing, he was giving his witness statement, and the other side was questioning him, and they said, well, how about your alcohol problem? How about your gambling problem? And actually what they did, they had a personal investigator, right? A detective finding out about the person. We didn't do our homework. We just trusted that he is just like a competent person to handle this case. So instantly, from the expert witness, he went into a total person who is not credible anymore, and the case went
Fell
in the wrong
apart.
direction. Not only because of this of his statement, but the question is: is your story credible? Is everything you say, is your body language aligned? The way you present it is aligned? And is there anything in your past the other party could actually dig out, which you would like to hide, right? So in this case, tell your lawyer right away. it would be a better idea. So your credibility being tested is really a tough thing, and you need to be ready for that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So in your experience, maybe we can talk about your personal side of things, and then also the kinds of treatments that you help then with. There's a huge emotional and psychological cost to people when they're going through these kinds of things. And I just wanted to kind of delve deeper because we talked a little bit about the identity crisis. Are there any other kinds of stressors that that either you've experienced through you experience through your own experience, or that you help clients work through? Like, what are some of the psychological impacts that can happen
We
other than this?
Okay, yeah, the psychology, you start, for example, you easily start living inside this legal bubble.
Mhm.
So you possibly think that what you're dealing with is so important. So you withdraw from friends and family, you become isolated, you experience anxiety, you're constantly trying to predict an outcome which you can't predict. So this is also why litigation stress is such a unique kind of stress, because it's a combination of high stakes, relationship, children, contracts, reputation, finances, combined with unpredictability. So you can't say what's the outcome. Plus you don't have an end point. And this is what it makes it so stressful. And litigation stress there is at the College of Law in, I can't pronounce the name, Sichuan, in the at the university and in Canada. I can't remember the name of the place. Professor Havin and Keat, they were presenting a document which is about the psychological cost of civil litigation. And people who are in contact with the justice system, what they report is they feel anxiety, frustration, despair, and above all, overwhelm. And overwhelm is possibly the most draining part, because you have to respond to papers, deadlines, you have to instruct your lawyer, you have to pay the legal fees. You are on a territory, you don't know the terms. It's like different language. You don't know the rules. And at the same time, yeah, your future is at stake at some point, your life even. And this is what makes it so incredibly difficult. And in my case, I was actually, yes, totally withdrawing from family and friends. And I was, well, physically present, but mentally absent all the time, because my mind was constantly going on this case.
Yeah, and when you get into that feeling of overwhelm, it's almost like you become paralyzed because you just feel like you have so much that you're just like, I don't know how to deal with this. And so it's almost like you just check out.
Yes, you do. I mean, you are constantly between the flight, fight, and freeze state, right? According to where you are. I remember I called my lawyer. I was in state of panic. And then the point is that your lawyer is not trained, and it's not his duty or her duty to actually calm you down. They can't handle your emotions. And this is one of the misconceptions. When we go into litigation, we just think, okay, we hand the whole thing over to the lawyers and we are done. But they cannot handle the emotional and mental stress. They are not trained. It's not their way of working. And if they are dealing with somebody who's panicking and anxious or aggressive, makes the work even more difficult for them.
Hmm. Well, and like I get, the fact that lawyers are not trained in this. My question would be like, do you think that from your own experience, like that lawyers should have some minimal amount of training of how to walk people through this? because a lot of people, like, legal cases are also really, really expensive. When we're going through the litigation process, it's really, really expensive. And so people might not even have access to funds to work with somebody like you who helps people go through this process. And so I think we had talked about during our intro call, like lawyers have no bedside matter. And, like, should there be a minimum amount of training that they have to help people through this, or what do you think?
I think they should, by all means. At least they have to prepare people of what that can turn out to be. So
Mhm.
you're from your mindset, you're saying, well, this is possibly going to be a sprint, right? A couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, possibly a
Mhm.
misunderstanding, and we settle that quickly.
Mhm.
And this sprint turns out to be a marathon,
Mhm.
and possibly a marathon without a finishing line. So
Mhm.
are you prepared for this? And this, I think, well, the legal team should tell you what to expect, even in terms of extreme emotions. I was
Mhm.
talking to somebody, she said she was the witness in a case. And she stood up and she spilled the water over the table. And then she walked in this witness stand and she fell on the floor. And the judge was looking down on her, and she said, this was the worst moment in my life. And she was a witness. She said, what would have helped you? She said, if I had seen the place. So if you already have an idea about the courtroom, how does a courtroom look? We just know it from movies, right? So that would help in order to calm the system, to just already give an idea of what to expect. Would be helpful.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I like that idea actually of even just seeing the place first, right? I know this, it's very different, but they often say, like, if you're writing exams, for example, if you can study in the place where you're going to be taking the exam, that you'll
Yes.
actually perform better. So having that kind of advantage to see the courtroom, I can imagine would actually be more grounding because you've actually been there, you've experienced it. Maybe you sat in the chair, so you know.
You need to have an idea. If you don't have an idea or have seen the place, for example, your brain starts speculating. And this takes enormous amount of energy away from you. So your brain is constantly into creating horror scenarios in which you're trying to prepare. And this is diverting totally from focusing on the case. Your nervous system is constantly trying to protect you from something. So you would either want to run out of the situation, or you can't go into attack. So you freeze. And if somebody was telling you, look, this is what to expect, this is where you go, this is how the place looks, that would be really helpful in improving your capacity of focusing on the case, concentrating, taking good decisions rather than speculating.
Mhm. So, when you're working with clients then, like, do you work with them for the entire term of the case? Because, I mean, sometimes cases can go on for years, years and years.
Yes,
So
they can
is
go on for 10 years. Mine was for 2.5 years. So ideally is we start working together when the case starts, because this is when the stress already starts. If you sue somebody or you get sued, so this is already when it starts. My actually the best would be is we are preparing for everything in life, right? Or a lot of things, let's say, right? We have a job interview, we prepare. For exam, we're going to prepare. We're going on vacation, we prepare. On a hike, we prepare. How's the weather conditions? Except for litigation. We just walk into it having no idea about what's going to happen. So ideally, we start to work together at the beginning, but people come at different stages. It's right in the middle of it, and maybe even after the case, because it's still there, even if it's closed. There is anger, there is resentment, and they can't let go. They think about the case, about the worst period in their lives, and it still triggers them.
mm. So, what would you say then? Like, what are some of the tools and techniques that you use to help people let things go? Because that could be used in a litigation scenario, but that can also be used in other kinds of scenarios. A lot of the time, people like they keep thinking about things over and over and over again, and they just can't like accept it and let it go.
Yes, there is, for example, here I'm working with hypnosis, hypnotherapy,
Mhm. Mhm.
with visualizations.
Mhm.
This is if you have a clear picture. And so, because the subconscious mind reacts to two things: the pictures we create in our head and the words we speak to ourselves.
Mhm.
And once you change the pictures in your mind and the
Mhm.
words you listen to, your subconscious mind can accept to let go. So here, this part is rather on the subconscious level rather than on
Mhm.
the cognitive side.
Mhm. Okay. And so, because I sometimes like, I think everybody has a little bit of a hard time letting things go. So it's hypnotherapy, but do any of those kinds of things ever get stored in the body as well? Or how do you incorporate the kinesiology side of things together with the hypnotherapy side of things?
So some sometimes you're carrying there are kind of rituals you can do, like different therapeutic, if you want, or tools that help, like for example, giving the back the burden you are carrying. Right, so it's a procedure. You're lifting something heavy, which represents the case, and you are returning it possibly to the person who brought it up, or you're giving it to some place where it's stored safely. So you are feeling this lightness of not caring anymore. There are specific tools in kinesiology, hypnotherapy, cognitive behavioral therapy as well, which help to actually let go.
Mhm. Okay. So when you're in a state of like high stress, and let's say you're on the stand or something like that, right? What are the ways that you help people or coach people through staying grounded? Because before you had said, people often become very reactive when your nervous system is on edge all the time and you become very reactive instead of like staying grounded and responding appropriately. So I feel like that could be really challenging when you're under such high stakes.
That's right. So one of the fastest um, tools or exercises is a breathing exercise. So it takes less than a minute to calm the nervous system. Actually, if you're really high stress, so the question is how to activate the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is the calming nerve in your autonomic nervous system. For example, something like humming can instantly um, reduce the stress and relax and feel more grounded. So it's very easy tools. I mean, the easier the tools are, the better they work. Breathing, humming, then there are stretching exercises, stretching the backside of the legs, because when you are tense in this fight, flight, freeze, all the muscle are tense in your body, right? And basically the muscles of the leg, because you're in the running or running away from or attacking mode. So if you are stretching the backside of your leg, the feedback from the muscles to the brain is there is no stress. You can relax, and this helps instantly.
Mhm. Okay. How do you work with people who have like chronic stress? Because, like, for example, for me, I hold a lot of tension in my neck and my shoulders. And that's kind of like my chronic stress situation is right here. And so when you're dealing with people who have like a chronic stress situation, or they're not always able to like me personally, my nervous system is always on edge, and so I jump a lot, I start a lot, things like that. And so when you're dealing with people who have chronic like nervous system imbalances and things like that, what are like, and I do a lot of yoga, I do a lot of
Yeah, you
meditation,
do it.
so
Okay.
I
Yeah.
I have tools that I use, but when you're dealing with somebody who maybe is a little bit like they can't.
how about your thoughts? I mean, what are you thinking? So in this case is, right? So what are you, I'm doing a lot of things. I'm always on the edge, right? So how do you see yourself? Are you somebody who says, well, I have to deal with all these different things at the same time? Of course, there is a tension building up. So is it watching your thoughts? What are your thoughts telling you?
Yeah. About myself or
Yes, about
about.
yourself, about how you see life, about how your work is. Are you
Okay.
somebody who says, well, I'm unactive and this is kind of who I am, so dynamic, so everything. So is the picture you're creating of yourself causing the stress?
Oh, I never really thought about that. So do you think that there's a potential then that the way like the way that we think about ourselves causing stress, but if the way that we think about ourselves is generally positive, can that be a source of stress because maybe we don't feel like we're always living up to it or something like that? Or
Well, for example, if we say, well, I need to have a break. I'm so stressed. I need to have a break, but it doesn't work. So it's good to question, what does break mean? Having a break for you, what is it? Is it okay, or does it mean I'm having a break? Making was means I'm lazy. How are people who are having a break or sitting down having a cup of coffee? How do you consider them? And if you say slowing down means I'm not performing, people who are slowing down are lazy. So this, how you see the word and your concept has an impact on your stress level.
okay.
So
So, do you end up doing a lot of self-concept work with people through the hypnotherapy, for example?
yes, so we are, for example, it's important to know what is the outcome? Who is the person you would like to be after the case? And working towards the person, right? Getting away from that current situation and towards the new concept, the life you would like to lead after that. Because most people, they just think just to the case and not beyond. And that's the most important thing. You have to have a vision. Back when I was 16, I had a self-defense workshop. And at the end of this case, and these were two guys, they were just breaking whatever wooden stuff with their hands. And at the end of the workshop, we had to break a wooden board with the elbow. So we were getting ready. They were holding this, and we were getting ready to hit this thing to break it. And I did. And nothing happened, right? I just hit it and my elbow was hurting terribly. And the person said, the problem is that you only focus the board. You have to visualize, you have to focus on the infinity, the endlessness behind the board. And this is what you are targeting for. And that's what I did. And the board just cracked. And that this is important, that we need to know the board is the court case, and we need to know what's beyond the court case. How is my life going to be? We have to visualize it for the brain to make it attractive to go there. So it's not your life is not ending with the case. You have to think further.
Think further than the end of the case. Do you ever encounter people who, like, once a case has been over, maybe you can talk about your own experience, right? Because you went through this for 2.5 years of going through this. And then when the case was finally resolved, it's almost like because that consumed you for such a long time, do people have a hard time kind of rediscovering their identity after?
That's a super important question. That's a super point, Samantha, here. And yeah, this is so important because there is a shock when litigation starts. And there's a shock when it ends. A client of mine, he went through a terrible custody battle. Then at the end, they found an agreement. And then he said, the legal caravan, they are just moving on. And I'm sitting there with all this stress. What's the next step? I don't know. I'm lost. I'm disoriented.
Mm-hmm.
Can I trust my partner? How do I behave towards my daughter? Who am I now that this thing is over?
Mm-hmm.
And in my case, what I can say, I'm allowed to say that we found an agreement, but I was ready. I wanted to go to the judge. I wanted the judge to see through all these kind of, which I perceived as a camouflage thing. And then it's like you are going to prepare for the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And just 3 weeks before the start, somebody's telling you Olympics are not taking place. So what are you doing with all the energy and all the concept, everything you have been building up? And they say, no, it's canceled. In terms of what your aim is, that's a very difficult part. And here you have to make sure you have specific aims, you have specific daily activity, you have a discipline, and you establish a routine for your life. Because at one point I said, if I'm losing everything I have, who am I? I still said, I still have myself. But who is this? Who am I? It's a very delicate situation of litigation. And when it's over, it doesn't mean it's resolved. Sometimes it's just a start of another stressful period.
I like the way that you said that, though, because it's like you come to a conclusion, but potentially people go into the system looking for justice, right? And we already established that's not about justice, it's about credibility. But they go
Yes.
into it thinking like, I'm going to get justice. But then when justice isn't served, for example, or you come to an agreement, but justice still isn't served through that agreement, I think that can also be kind of mind-boggling for people as well. If you're going into it as someone who had something like really horrible happen to them, I mean, because there's all sorts of reasons that people can go to court. How do you coach people through when, like, how, and maybe this goes back into letting go, right? How do you coach people through when they go through a court case and it ends, but they didn't get the result that they wanted or the justice didn't occur? Because that can also be a trauma.
This can also be, that can also be a trauma. So it's here we are working with coming back to the values, coming back to the life you would like to lead. So there are this is like working with your inner team, with these parts of you, like part therapy, which is important to get whole again, and to come to terms with the fact that justice as you thought it exists is not real. It didn't exist. So it's like you're saying, well, this was a misunderstanding. And you forgive yourself about just having the wrong concept and going on, because you can't carry it for too long. So it's there's a lot of acceptance in there, and there's a lot of forgiveness in this case. And if you want to, you can say this is the worst period of my life, or you can say litigation is a teacher. It teaches about your stress patterns, about how you take challenges, how you react towards authority. Can you stand the ground when you are attacked? And this is like a life lesson. And many people I spoke with, they always say, I came out stronger. Is there a lesson you learned? Yes, there was a lesson. I found an inner strength. I found my voice. This is what people say. So if you take it from that perspective, yeah, they learned a lot. Stress management, crisis, the way they work, the way they focus, it's very, it gives basically a lesson, a life lesson.
A life lesson.
In hindsight, today, I would say, well, thank you for that case. Thanks for having sued me, right? Otherwise, my life would have been different.
Yeah.
And it took that direction. And possibly that's why. Possibly it all needed to be that way for me to go into the direction kinesiology, hypnotherapy, to self-development.
Well, that's always a positive way to look at it, right? Like when we think of the negative things that happen to us, rather than thinking, okay, why is this happening to me? Right? We talked about mindset shift, right? It's thinking about it. Why is this happening for me? Because
That's right.
yeah, it made me stronger. It made me more resilient. It made me see my blind spots. It made me, work on those parts of me that I need to be worked on. It made me learn more emotional control, things like that, right? I always kind of say that if you're not able to control your emotions, your own emotions, then other people are controlling you.
Absolutely, you're reacting. You're reacting to this kind of to emotion, and you are easily the part is know your triggers, know your weak points, because it's subconscious.
What do you do with clients to help them to learn their triggers?
It's all about awareness. People are usually unaware about triggers. Say, I would possibly be very angry, react in an angry way. And you say, well, you react in an angry way. And I say, well, possibly I do, but I don't know what the reason is. So this is totally subconscious, right? On the other side, you would say, yeah, you reacted in an angry way. And I said, well, that's true, but I don't know what the reason is. Or you'd say, okay, I know, yes, I reacted in an angry way because it reminded me of a situation. And the other person would say, I'm not angry, right? And this is that's the part where you say, what? It's totally unaware of the reaction. And this is a trigger. And this becoming aware that getting into the feelings and emotion, accepting them and observing, like, how am I reacting? And this is the part of awareness, which is essential to get close to your emotions, rather than just keeping that inside and saying, no, I'm not angry. No, I'm not conscious. No, I'm not. It's the getting from the total unconscious to the conscious behavior, or conscious dealing with emotions.
Do you ever work with kids who are so kids are most likely going to be going through custody battles and divorce proceedings. And so, because you had mentioned that you had a client who was going through divorce proceedings. So it can be quite a toll on kids who, like, they don't understand what's going on. They don't understand why mom and dad are fighting, and they get caught in the middle of these things. And I mean, I've never been through the experience, but you can hear horror stories of, like, the mom and dad are saying horrible things about each other to the kids, and then these things get embedded into the child's mind, and that can cause huge psychological trauma. So I'm just wondering if you have experience with that, or how these things are different when you're dealing with adults versus children.
Yes, taking the case of the person I was referring with, there's a custody battle, there's a divorce, and here it was the case here in Switzerland. The son, he was getting bad results in school. The teacher was calling. He was easily getting in fights with his friends, and we were dealing with. And the point is that children, they have difficulty of explaining or expressing. While they are shutting all emotions, they become silent. And here is, I'm working with kinesiology, because kinesiology, you don't need explanations. It's the body that tells you where the stress is. And this is what's hugely successful generally, kinesiology and children.
Mm-hmm.
So there is fear related, and there is well, there's they are afraid, they are fearful, and this is all sitting in their body, and they have no way of expressing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually a very good idea to, if children are involved, to make
Mm-hmm.
sure they're not suffering from the long-term effects or the consequences
Mm-hmm.
from their parents
Mm-hmm.
having divorce or a dispute.
Yeah, because I think that can be a huge psychological trauma on a person depending on how bad the legal battle is, right? So it can really impact somebody for the rest of their life, and it can also impact their relationships in the future, how they interact with their partners.
Absolutely. So this, if you see the parents like in a divorce, right? So what does, and this creates a picture, an idea about what is a relationship, right? They can carry that to their later life, the way how they form relationship. Do they want to form relationships? And the earlier things are settled, the earlier children are taken care of, the better. And this doesn't work with talk therapy, let's say, because how do you like them to express themselves in a cognitive way, right? They don't express their emotions like a grown-up would do. So on the body level, working on the body level would be the best for children.
Yeah. So then through the kinesiology, like we had kind of touched on this before, storing certain emotions in certain places. Are you able then, like depending on where the tension is or where you're doing the energy work, are you able to kind of get a sense of how they're feeling through that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it always does. So kinesiology shows us it's like a menu, right? So you are asking the system what emotions are implied in here. Is it anger? Is it shame? Is it fear? And the system feeds back about what emotion it is we are dealing with, and then we can resolve the stress related to the emotion. But I said holding specific acupuncture points, and this is a phenomenal, it's a phenomenal method, basically to work with, as you're saying it, working with children, working with people who can't express themselves, or even people having a traumatic experience and they don't want to talk about it or can't talk about it. For them, it's enough to think about it for me to work with it as a kinesiologist.
Okay. I see. That's very interesting. So, because you're based out of Europe, and I'm just curious because we talked about adults, we talked about children, but I'm wondering also because there's tons of different cultures in Europe as well. And so I'm wondering, do you ever experience like different modalities work better for different cultures, or how does culture impact the way that people respond to stress and trauma? And then how do you kind of change your approach based on that?
That's a very interesting question. For example, if we talk about people from India, for example, they are very open and receptive to energy work. In Europe, for example, energy work is a kind of what's that kind of thing, woo-woo stuff,
Ooh,
right? Yeah,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And so they are kind of hesitant. But the experience I have is with European people, when they are in a real bad shape and they really need help, they accept kinesiology or energy work, for example, and then they are surprised how well that works. So there are shifts from, let's say, in terms of culture, from this very cognitive approach, right, where feelings and energy is kind of woo-woo stuff, right, to cultures where energy is part of daily life, and it's so much easier for them to process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I kind of wonder also, I was having this conversation yesterday with somebody that, in Eastern traditions, they have words for energy, right? Like or life force energy, right? So whether it's chi or whether it's prana, I think is another term, right? But there's words these for this life force energy. And I know in English, we don't have a word to represent that. So I'm curious because you speak three languages,
Yeah,
probably more, but like, are there words for that in Western languages or?
they are words, but it sounds abstract.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas in countries, yeah, like India, say life force and life energy, they are dealing with it on a daily basis. I remember I
Mm-hmm.
was with having a client, and he was wearing a specific stones, rings, right? And he said,
Mm-hmm.
"Well, this," and they talk openly about it, right? And said, "I'm wearing that kind of stone, and because that's a kind of energy, because I am having an issue with anger management."
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like it's a daily practice. It's part of their life. So
Mm-hmm.
it makes it much easier. I wish Western countries be more open. Life would be much easier if we're open to these concepts.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's interesting though because science is starting to catch up to some
Yeah.
of the things that Eastern traditions have been teaching for thousands of years already, and now the Western science is just starting to catch up with the fact that, like, oh, like I was talking to somebody yesterday about the fact that we're biomagnetic, right? Because we have like the heart and the electrical field, right? So we create this electrical field, and that's only been pretty recent that people admit like we're bioresonant beings.
Yeah,
So,
it's very true. So we are much more than all our thoughts, right? Create an energy. We are emotions are certain frequencies, and this, as you say, this is only recently that it comes up. Luckily, in Switzerland, they are pretty much advanced. Kinesiology, for example, is paid by the additional health insurance.
oh, that's pretty good. I'm not sure if it is in Canada or not, but I'm going to look into that and find out.
Yeah, so there is kinesiology in many parts of Europe and UK. There are associations in Australia and Canada. But the question is, who pays for it? Do I have to pay on my own, or is the health insurance paying that part? And I guess the fact that Swiss health insurance is accepting kinesiology as a method, which they pay for, well, it proves that it works.
Hmm. I think that acupuncture, because it also deals with meridians. So I think you can write off acupuncture in Canada, but I'm not sure about kinesia because I've never been, so I've never had to try.
Yeah,
But yeah, so
it's a good experience because you learn a lot about yourself.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Even when you think, no, I'm not stressed, I'm handling this well, your body
mm-hmm.
tells a different story.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually recently went for it's not kinesiology, but I went for a bioresonance
Mm.
I went for a bioresonance test, and the report that I got back was, I think, very accurate in terms of the things that I was experiencing. And it was like, okay, like this is your liver, something's up with your liver and something's up with your gut and blah blah blah. And so it was very enlightening, but also very accurate because I was like, "Yeah, actually."
Yeah, because you can't fool your system, right? So it reflects who you actually are, and you can't turn this around. The body, there is the intelligence and the wisdom of the body of the system, and we simply have to accept it. And if we work together, cooperate with our system, it's you're advancing much faster than fighting it.
Mhm. So, we had talked a little bit about resilience and how, like, we can use these things as seeing them as beneficial to us in terms of cultivating and creating that resilience. I wanted to talk about little bit about, like, how can we continue to maintain that resilience. So after a traumatic experience like this, and whether or not it lasts for, 6 months or 2 years or 10 years, but how do we kind of harness that resilience and take that with us after the trial ends?
Um, this would be in daily practice.
Mm-hmm.
Right, daily practice. You're brushing your teeth, right? Whatever you do, you have breakfast in the morning. Daily routines, and if
Mm-hmm.
you maintain the routine on a specific level,
Mm-hmm.
right, with even small practices, breathing exercise, grounding, meditation, whatever it is, keeping it in your daily routine make sure you are keeping up this resilience or this mental strength, whatever you
Mm-hmm.
require. It's a kind of, if we wait for motivation, it
Mm-hmm.
possibly will not happen. So
Mm-hmm.
it's about, what we need is kind of discipline for a certain period of time till
Mm-hmm.
it becomes a ritual or routine.
Mm-hmm. What's your
Everything, yeah,
routine?
sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So everything we learn like this, you can learn from litigation. You can extract long-term skills,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you can take it as a litigation, as a training field, and get this, whatever you learn in there, get it in your daily life and daily
Mm-hmm.
field and practice.
Mm-hmm. So I was just asking, like, do you have a specific routine that you follow that you still practice to this day?
It's breathing. It's a breathing exercise with which I start every morning. So I wake up and I do rounds of box breathing, and it kind of sequences. And this is possibly for 20 minutes. And at the beginning, I thought, oh my goodness, I have to do this breathing exercise. And oh gosh, 5 minutes is already long. And it went 20 minutes. And if I'm not doing it, I'm missing it. And this is when it becomes routine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find that actually for me it's like meditation. Like
Yeah,
my routine is like I get up and I make my coffee and then I do my meditation with my coffee, and it's, if I don't meditate, I feel frazzled the rest of the day, you know?
right.
Mhm.
It's an essential part of your well-being and self-care.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
interesting. So how long are you meditating in the morning?
Um it depends, like maybe 20 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do different meditations though, because sometimes I get bored with like the same, because I like the
Mm,
guided meditations. And so I
yeah.
try to find guided meditations that fit what I'm working through at the moment. And so it depends on how long the meditation is. But I've also done like longer meditations. I don't know if you have ever done work with Joe Dispenza, and he has
Yeah.
some, yeah, Joe Dispenza, he has some meditations, but they're super long. They're like 75 minutes or something like that. And so I have done those. Was doing those pretty religiously at one point in time. And what I liked about those though was that I could start to feel like energy in my fingers. And it's like I could start to feel the energy going through my body as well. Um, but some of his meditations are really intense because it focuses on like pulling up the
Yes.
stuff from the spinal fluid. And so you need to be like, it's not like a relaxing meditation, right? It's like you're energizing and trying to get everything up to the pineal gland.
Yes, it's a very powerful meditation. I remember I was in Germany once at Joe Dispenza seminar, and I don't know how many people were there, thousands, right? We were in a huge ballroom, and he started this meditation, and you felt the energy like in your body. I mean, this for me, that was very scary. I didn't even know that exists. I mean, this kind of sensation of energy in the whole room. I mean, this was incredible. I mean, this shows how powerful energy is and how you can lead it through the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's happened to me a couple of times too, actually, and I've freaked myself out a few times because it was just, like, so much, and I was just like,
Yeah,
so
it can be extremely scary, and then
it can be.
you need to know how to deal with it,
Mhm.
right? How to channel that
Yeah,
whole
how to
thing. Yeah, it
channel
can be
it,
very
yeah.
scary.
I've never been to a Joe Dispenza workshop, but I it's on my list, so one day I'm gonna go.
You
So,
gotta go. Okay,
yeah,
right. Yeah,
one day I'm gonna go. But I think there's also something really powerful about having that many people meditating together in a room, right? Then the energy compounds.
yeah. I would have never thought that it can feel that way. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's also about visualizing things. And I suddenly had this kind of picture, and it, as you said, you're scaring yourself
Yeah.
right, about what is possible when you let this energy flow.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be really scary. So, well, we're getting kind of close to the end of our time here. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we wrap things up?
I just wanted, I just, when there's something I want to say, is just like when you go into litigation, prepare
Mm-hmm.
and expect a huge ton of stress, and have a support system in place
Mm-hmm.
to help you through the entire period. Maybe a friend, maybe a family member, like a accountability partner that who makes sure
Mm.
that you're doing your daily work. You don't have to do you don't have to handle the stress alone. And there is a word for it. There is even the litigation stress syndrome. You're not weak. You're just experience a stress situation regarding an abnormal circumstances. So get help.
Yeah, I think that's so important because we often feel like we have to deal with these hard things alone. But when you have that support system, it's makes it so much easier.
It does. I mean, actually having a guidance is the most important thing. And knowing that litigation stress exists. That's nothing you make up. That's nothing you're suffering out of weakness, or something is wrong with you. It's proven that it affects people tremendously. So don't ever go through this period on your own.
Hmm. And you are working on a book right now, or is it already released?
No, I'm still working on this book, and my book is going to be a survival guide for litigation stress. There are tools and strategies. There are interviews. There are advices from litigants, from legal experts, and yeah, it's like a pocket guide to get you through this most stressful period.
Okay, amazing. And what's the best place for people to find you online if they want to work with you or follow you?
Um, Yes, it would be. Will find me my website. That's the easiest part. That would be litigation minus stress minus coach.com.
Okay, amazing. Okay, well, thank you so much, Anya, for being on the show today. This was such an interesting topic and I think really, really important and crucial for people's mental health and well being. So thank you for being the one to bring this information to us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Samantha. I
Okay.
enjoyed being with you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Take
Bye.
care. Take care.
Ella sabe.